2018 Citrus, while being, let's say, the most known Yuri anime in English-speaking parts of the internet, is ironically one of, if not the most hated Yuri anime of all time. But is this deserved, or is it an overreaction? So today, since I've promised this video for at least 3 months now, we're gonna finally take a look back at Citrus, because our favorite fruits are lemons. Because for all the BS we have to witness in regards to online BL discourse, it's about time we take a glimpse at the other side of the gender-loving aisle. I'm gonna talk feelings on Yuri anime in general, but mostly Citrus after watching it 6 years later. Spoilers ahead, but do you care? Cover a swath of topics and criticisms of Citrus and Yuri and share opinions on them as someone who is very much more so a fan of BL. We'll talk cute girls doing cute things, Yuri bait, the Fujoshi's estranged stepbrother, the Hime Danshi, and maybe if I'm feeling in an instigating mood, we'll plunge into the depths of discourse hell and touch on I never get a chance to talk about anime girls, I might as well talk about all of them. But to start, let's dive into the world of Yuri's biggest boogie woman.
I left a taste in your mouth, cause you taste me and now I'm bitter.
Citrus is a story of love. Girls' love at an all-girls school, of which shoujo romance aspirationist and gyaru galore Yuzu Aihara begins attending after her mother's marriage to a man her daughter has never met. We are off to a great start. While the school is a private institution with a strict dress code for its students, Yuzu struts into the assembly in gaudy couture on her first day as a statement against the patriarchy-run institution. However, after being stopped by the watchdogs of the establishment and not backing down on her freedom of expression, Yuzu is confronted by Nepo Baby Stuco President Mei, who snatches Yuzu's soul out of her body in the name of phone confiscation. Later that day, after retrieving her phone from the principal's office, Yuzu catches Mei kissing her apparent fiancé Ikemen Sensei in an alley, only to then later that night learn Soul Snatcher Mei is in fact her new stepsister. And before the episode is over, the two share a kiss in the midst of their, I think, 4th argument that day. The next day, after a confrontation with grandpa-in-law resulting in Yuzu skipping school, Yuzu learns that Ikemen Sensei only plans to marry Mei for money and has a boyfriend on the side. Yuzu reveals to her Imoto that she's being played by a gay man, but Mei says it's fine because she's an MLM fetish. Mei says it's fine, what about it? And struts off on the verge of tears in her coat that says, I really don't care, do you? As Yuzu gradually comes to terms with her feelings towards her homoto, she exposes Ikemen who loves men sensei in a 4-hour video essay the following day in front of the whole school, which causes Mei, whose middle name is Long Videos Are My Jam, to throb. And so the two set out on a path of not will they, won't they, but more so will they will, but they sure are taking their sweet time as they deal with Yuri Yokozawa, a pink-haired pain in the ass, and even a 2 blue-haired vortex of biological on their eventual path of becoming Yuri's very own eraser mic.
Wish I could get a little undrunk so I could uncall you at 5 in the morning. I would unfuck you.
So I watched Citrus as it aired back in 2018. Oh, I have a package. Of course.
Got me feeling like a lesbian.
So I watched Citrus as it aired back in 2018, and it was actually the first anime I ever watched when I first decided to follow a seasonal anime schedule. Back then I thought it was fine. We are not gonna address this. Back then I thought it was generally fine. It was my first Yuri anime, frankly did not inspire me to seek out more. The only character I actively liked was Harumi, I gave it a 5. Citrus was controversial at the time of its airing for reasons we will touch on later, but to me Citrus was generally forgettable. Except literally since it aired, nobody has allowed any of us to forget about it. If you look up any discourse on Yuri manga and or anime, Citrus is likely being mentioned, probably being framed like it's Boku no Pupa. So of course, as I often do, I decided to rewatch Citrus this year out of spite. And generally my feelings on it are pretty much the same. I gave it a 5 the first time. I would probably give it a 6 after this rewatch, but I would not watch it a 3rd time. I have a broader perspective on certain aspects of the story, which I'll highlight in a second, but I stand by my opinion that seriously, Citrus is scandalous. The anime where the pink-haired antagonist kicks over a school sign in anger, then calls the school asking them to put it back up, the scandal. But let's get into the dumbest generalization I've seen about Citrus that generally falls under the umbrella of
your girlfriend never thanked me for making her go viral. Fuck it, I'm her idol.
Before we proceed, I just want to say that this is not a debunking video. Have your opinions, I'm just sharing mine. I cannot speak to the queer woman experience, I cannot speak to the woman experience, let alone someone who regularly consumes Yuri. I'm basically just brain dumping. Things like Citrus is Yuri with toxic yaoi tropes, or Citrus is a yaoi manga with lesbians, or any other variation makes me sigh. But let me tell you 4 reasons why these statements are fundamentally flawed outside of the obvious. Firstly, if this was BL, Yuzu would be with Momokino, not with Mei. Tsunderes are the tsundere, and tall blondes are always on top. I don't make the rules. Secondly, it may be called citrus, the fruit on display may be a lemon, but you can't fool me, this anime is lime. Also, there's a yellow citrus fruit called a yuzu, and yuzu is yuzu. Facts and logic. Thirdly, there are not nearly enough step-sibling romances in BL for this to have proximity to BL. The only ones that come to mind are super lovers in Hirano to Kageura. You know what's an actual problem? That the hets won't share all their step-sibling stories with BL. I have expectations, Shionji family children. You have potential. You could change the world. And lastly, no, citrus is not secretly a yaoi manga. Because Mikan by Akiyoshi Shima is literally yaoi citrus and not trying to hide it. In relation to my shifting perspective on citrus as I watched it a second time, shockingly, a lot of nuance and context is lost when discussing some of the more controversial aspects of the story. When we talk about one of the most iconic scenes in anime of all time, breathtaking, I feel like there's not enough of an understanding of this scenario taking place from Yuzu's perspective. One, this is the catalyst of Yuzu realizing that she's into girls, and two, this scenario is entirely her interpretation of events. The sweeping movements of Mei's hands gliding across Yuzu's body like Yuri on the ice is how Yuzu is perceiving the scenario, not what is literally going on. Literally, Mei is going for Yuzu's phone in her pocket. Is Mei invading Yuzu's space? Yes. If a Stuco president did this to me, would they get slapped? Probably. However, that aside, Yuzu is discovering in this unnecessarily Sakuga moment that she is in fact into the idea of being with girls. Many of us have been there, like when the person you think is hot at work reaches over your shoulder at your desk to help you with that spreadsheet you just can't figure out. These actions typically are not done with any secret intention. In rare instances is that the opposite case, and of course, obviously, statistically, the chances of it, the rare cases being more frequent increase if you're a woman. But in a vacuum, and especially when it's between people of the same gender in a heteronormative society, it's usually not the other person of the same gender's intent, especially if you're in trouble. And I mean, if someone invades your space, even if it is with no malintent, that is something for you to rightfully get upset about because of personal boundaries. But I'm just highlighting in this fictional scenario where Yuzu's perspective of events is coming from. There's no precedent for Mei to be groping Yuzu with sexual intent in this scenario because later on, there is in fact intent behind her, let's say, aggressively intimate encroaches on Yuzu, which as always lose all nuance within TikTok comment sections. As we remember, Yuzu witnessed Mei being kissed by her family mandated for financial gain fiance. It's established that this is not a romantic partner Mei has chosen for herself, and over the course of the story, we come to learn that Mei is someone who simply obeys when it comes to the whims of the Aihara family. Even if it bothers her, she doesn't allow herself to have opinions for the sake of the family. When Mei refuses to talk to Yuzu later in their bedroom, Yuzu teases Mei about being an honor student who makes out with a teacher on the side, effectively teasing a girl who was forcibly kissed about a kiss she did not want. So when Mei forces a kiss upon Yuzu and then states this is how kisses are, is this the best reaction to take to someone who has effectively shamed you for something you did not want? Maybe not. But between the interaction with the fiancé as well as with Momokino in a later episode, Mei stating that this is what kisses are like is a reflection of the implication of the fact that all the kisses that Mei has received up until this point have not been desired, that frankly these kind of kisses are what she perceives as normal, and that she does not like them even though she will receive them for the sake of the status quo. She's showing Yuzu that the relationships that Yuzu has rose-tinted glasses about are a much different reality based on Mei's lived experience, in the most ridiculous way. So that's generally my most specific thoughts and feelings on Citrus. We'll talk more about other aspects about it as we go. But while I have you here and we're showing the girlies love,
As if I'm not what you're waiting for, like I'm not in your ending.
to be honest, this wig is sweaty and hot as but to be honest, Yuri is not for me. I will likely continue to consume Yuri on occasion. I have not completely sworn it off, but most of the Yuri that I've seen, I have not loved. Often when I've watched Yuri, I've asked myself, do I even ship female characters at all? And then I'll watch something like, shout out last video, 2.5 Dimensional Seduction, and be enthralled by the interactions between my Yuri and the elf One-san.
エルフだってエルフのお姉さんいますか
Or something like Yatagarasu and laugh my ass off at the fact that this king-to-be has 4 courtesans, and they're all lesbians! In my initial stages of consuming Yuri, Citrus in particular, I had the widespread perception of it being made by men for men. This was a mix of seeing this sentiment from unsourced online discussions, of course my own fault, as well as being all too familiar with the male gaze-dominated execution of lesbian relationships in Western media, most notably represented by things like lesbian porn being under the straight section on porn sites. However, of the 5 Yuri anime that I have watched in any meaningful capacity, 3 of them have been written by women. Let's play a game. I'll say a title and you guess man or woman. No cheating! Yagate Kimi ni Naru aka Bloom Into You. What do you think? By a woman. Netsuzo Trap aka NTR. Well, I guess I take it back about no cheating. By a woman. Citrus? woman. Women are now making GL. Just kidding. They always have. Not only was Citrus written by a woman, but it was written by a woman who was inspired by Sailor Moon and whose influences include Yu Watase and Clamp. Yet her story is nowhere near as up as any story that they've written. She can do better. We believe in her. Give us Rule 63X, but call it Y. As for the other two, Tensei Ojo to Tensei Reijo, really long title, shortened as Maji Revo. As an artist and author of unknown gender, so I'm not going to assume. But you know which of the 5 Yuri anime that I've seen is the only one that's written by a man?
I hope that pain you like breaks up. Your new girl find out you suck.
It was airing in a season where I literally had so much else to watch, so I really don't know what I hung on for. Major Second was airing, giving me all the girls loving I'd ever need. I truly do not know why I did not drop it sooner. Adachi to Shimamura was platonic. That's all I'll say. Girls' life. I'd even argue that Adachi to Shimamura is in part why I have such visceral reactions to people wanting less and less expression in BL. Because if this is where we're headed, I'm going hetero. I'm already halfway there. Two and a half way there. I will say that I am somewhat grateful to Adachi Shimamura for really highlighting the lack of validity in the who makes Yuri argument. Because while Citrus is vilified yet written by a woman, Adachi to Shimamura is seen as slightly more liked but written by a man. Obviously comparing an anime like Citrus with an anime with significantly less notoriety and popularity is not the best example of highlighting the hypocrisy of the bi and for argument, but you know what juggernaut of a sapphiccally adored anime is?
Stuck in the errors of us, a story of love.
Puella Magi Madoka Magica, the magical girl fever dream full of used and abused love, was written by none other than Gen Urobuchi, most known for Fate Zero, Psycho-Pass, and my personal favorite, Revenger. Make it a BL visual novel, Nitro Chiro. I'm not gonna argue the canonity of Homomato. I literally do not care about Madoka enough at all. Literally at all. However, their presence within queer women and lesbian shipping spaces on the internet is undeniable. That kind of adoration for these two would have you think the common criticisms of only lesbians can write good lesbians would follow, but alas it doesn't. Absolutely shocking that the same argument that we see with inconsistencies and hypocrisy in relation to BL keeps the same energy when it comes to the ladies loving. Now for the aforementioned Yuri anime that I have seen in chronological order, my scores and opinions are as follows. Bloom Into You I gave an 8, my favorite Yuri anime by default. I would like to rewatch and then finish the manga one day. Netsuzo Trap gave it a 6. Genuinely shocked that this has not reached or even peaked beyond Citrus levels of boogie womanhood. Adachi to Shimamura dropped it at episode 5. Wish I dropped it a whole lot earlier. I don't give scores to things that I don't complete because otherwise I would give this a 1. And Maji Revo I gave a 7. Somewhat interesting world. It was just kind of okay. I entirely watched it for Al. As I mentioned before, I am not at all disinclined when it comes to shipping female characters, not at all against the sapphic even though, if I'm being honest, lesbian does literally nothing for me, and girl-girl ships are the least amount of ships that I ship when I'm shipping. All that being said, there is an aspect of Yuri anime that I have come to deduce is at the root of my disinterest, and it entirely has to do with Yuri's proximity to a certain subcategory of anime that has some of the largest economic pull on the anime industry.
I say I'm doing fine, but I'm fucking lying.
CGDCT. Try saying that 10 times fast. An acronym that I'm assuming most of you are somewhat at least unfamiliar with, that stands for cute girls doing cute things. There is no CGDCT genre. It is not a real thing. At least not under that title when coming from Japan, even though Japanese audiences also desire this kind of anime. Moe would be closest, but also too broad. More on Moe in a second. Madoka is Moe. Madoka has cute girls, but these cute girls are not doing cute things. The specific definition of CGDCT, like all other online and fan-made terminologies, tends to differ depending on who you're talking to. Some classify it as anime girls and slice of life anime with body types that are, while others may classify it as anime with all female cast where there is not a single male character present or mentioned, and even things like discussing liking theoretical boys will invalidate it immediately. I am not exaggerating. Moe's original definition in a vacuum does not apply to any set character, gender, or character model type. I have seen people describe Endeavor as Moe, but in English-speaking spaces, and as we often bastardize a lot of Japanese terminology, it is often associated with female anime characters with big eyes, lots of roundness, sausage-like tendrils. Most Yuri anime nowadays tends to have a traditionally moe character aesthetic, even if the cute girls are not necessarily doing cute things. And generally the stereotyped moe aesthetic is something that I personally am not at all ever drawn to. But the reason I highlight CGDCT in this section and not moe has to do with my personal belief that the desire specifically for CGDCT has had a stronger influence on the type of Yuri that has become in demand demand, as well as ultimately getting anime adaptations, and why in turn I am less interested in most Yuri overall. In relation to my feelings on the subject, I don't like cute girls doing cute things 99% of the time. I just don't like cute anime girls. I get why anybody of any gender could be into cute anime girls, even though I myself am personally not drawn to many of the existing executions. We as a global society love cute shit. People in the Discord know about cute shit. I'm literally rewatching Natsume Yujin-cho right now in preparation for season 7 this fall in October. I'm so excited. And anytime Nyanko Sensei is on screen and says Machaku or Najato or Natsume, I squeal. Where is my producer? Y'all have seen Wamu Wamu. I'm as a woo as they come. You are so precious. So I get it. However, as a consumer and lover of cute characters, I do not have a preferred gender for the character to be cute, nor do I even clearly prefer for necessarily the character words, to be human. Nyanko Sensei, Digimon, Pokemon, Gaku and Babysitters, Gaku, Kinoko, Fuko, Part 1 Naruto, Lulu. Cuteness to me is about the specifics in the execution of the specific character, not what its gender is, or if it's even human. So when I think about what constitutes cuteness, aside from like an inherent fascination with like the distorted and the grotesque, according to my professor in college in this one film class I took, shout out my capstone, except not shout out my capstone, stress! We can collectively assume from my aforementioned examples, as well as the broad examples of cute anime girls, we can think of things like smallness, roundness, a squeakier voice, a viewer's desire to protect due to a perceived weakness of a character that may not be there. Like, Nyanko Sensei. Nyanko Sensei does not need my protecting, so why do I want to protect him? Nowhere in that list is the gender specifically something that is an attribute of cuteness for me personally. So I have to assume that female characters being perceived as the cuter characters, if their mass prevalence is anything to go by, due at least in part due to women and girls being seen as the inherently weaker gender, the gender more worthy of protection, and thus the cuter gender. But I would also say it is also probably in part influenced by the ever-looming shadow of masculinity on men and women, as well as non-binary people, where even cute boys, because they are boys, are seen as being inherently threatening in a variety of ways. I just again want to preface that consumers of CGDCT are from all walks of life, all genders, all sexualities, races, creeds, blah, blah, blah. Not mine, though. Just kidding. As we know, there is no singular reason to consume any kind of story. Some people may watch CGDCT because they think women are inherently weaker, and thus the gender that is most capable of cuteness because cute boys are just not cute to them. Some men may watch CGDCT because the lack of a male presence allows them to relax from the expectations that society has put upon them because they are men. Some women may watch CGDCT because, frankly, men have caused them trauma and they want an escape, where they don't have to think about all the ways that men have caused them trauma and harm and oppress them. And some people may watch K-On! For the music. Or because they're Nazis. I will never get over the Nazi thing. Across the board, the main thing I want to highlight that is at least in part why CGT is sought out at all, and why that reason in particular is a big reason why I don't consume most Yuri, is that these stories have an inherent lack of, or apprehension to, sex and sexuality. Sound familiar? As I mentioned, CGDCT can be sought out by some CGDCT viewers. I don't know why I'm forcing myself to say this acronym so much, due to a lack of male presence, due to a lack of even a mention of them, and especially due to a lack of any attraction to them. So Yuri can often fall under the CGDCT classification. However, just because it's two girls girling doesn't mean they're gonna girl all the way. This is turning into an Adachi Shimomura takedown video, but the stark difference between a series like that and a series like Citrus is that Citrus does not hold back on its kisses, touches, and feels. Adachi Shimomura was like having two people have a really long conversation between the glass at a prison. As y'all know, I am a longtime shoujo reader and watcher. I am all about the longing and the waiting and the blushing and the sparkly bubbles. But there's a difference, but there is a tangle in my wig. There's a difference between portraying an intense romantic emotional story and two people hanging out who blush a lot. Do you have a fever? So I have to imagine in part the negative reception to Citrus and its comparisons to BL is stemmed in part from the desire for Yuri girls to not have any intense inclinations to kiss but not kiss too deep. But also, if we're being honest, the general perception of BL and Fujoshi being this crazed media and community. And I mean, Citrus, from what I understand, is about the ceiling of sexual expression when it comes to Yuri anime before going into full-on whereas plenty of BL anime toe the line in regards to expression, or at least they used to. Tasogare is like holding that shit up by its self at this point. It's then interesting to conceptualize a dichotomy of consumption, so to speak, between the male consumer of CGDCT and the female consumer of BL. Because where female BL consumers have often read BL from a sense of sexual exploration, something that sexist society discourages them from doing for the sake of the male ego, male consumers of CGDCT can be doing so from a place of wanting to desire from the societal pressures of masculinity, and dive into a world where the male gender is not present, and neither are the pressures related to so as to bring them comfort and relieve stress. Of course, this is just my own personal observation. I find this stark difference absolutely fascinating, especially when it comes to considering,
You know, I think that you're perfect, but I know why it's not working.
Now, of course, I don't know all queer women, even though in this wig, but I've always found it extra fascinating in my interactions with y'all over the years. A lot of queer women in my comments or on Patreon have told me why they've consumed BL instead of Yuri, often in part due to the platonic romantic of Yuri, but also often in part due to the more appealing character designs of BL. Which makes sense, not all women, not all men even, are into roly-poly girls. Androgynous and mask-presenting queer women exist for a reason, as do, like, character designs with, like, more angular, I guess, features. There's so much roundness nowadays. And that, in essence, is why I don't give a lot of Yuri a chance, even if I do know that it is Yuri. There's no variety in character design, and I'm just personally not a fan of the default. People have obviously made this similar accusation about BL over the years, and my general disagreement with that sentiment aside, we have always gotten a lot more variety in BL than in Yuri. Like, where are the Yuri girls who look like Yoroichi and Soifone, or even just Sakura? Even BL has gotten way more variety in recent years. There are more muscled men than ever, more muscle definition than ever, after the thin mints of the 90s and 2000s were complained about ad nauseum. Although fat phobia still persists to this day, especially in regards to readers who claim to want bi gay, for gay, but will never pick up a single thick boy gay comey, but let me stay on topic! Now there is another noticeable difference in consumer reactions that I've noticed casually over the years between a sect of Yuri consumers in comparison to, I would say, probably most BL consumers, that pertains to a concept that specifically on the BL side of the fence, most of us are more than happy to receive.
So why don't you just leave me?
If you ever wondered what the equivalent of a Fujoshi for Yuri is, it's called a Hime Danshi. Hime is princess, Danshi is boy, and apparently it once was slang for bottom. Hime Danshi are, of course, male fans of Yuri. The most notable Hime Danshi I can think of, my Hime Danshi, at least in the traditional terminology, is Taro Kabakura from Wotakoi. Bottoms up! So the notable difference I've noticed between Fujoshi and Hime Danshi that obviously extends and expands to the other genders and identities that consume this media, Yuri and BL fans at all, is the Hime Danshi reaction to anime that within their very specific fixation is considered bait. Now, I am not gonna dive into queer baiting discourse, especially as it pertains to East Asian media. I don't care. But as someone who thrives off of Fujo bait anime, especially in comparison to the BL offerings of recent years, I know I'm not the only BL fan, Fujoshi, Fudanshi, whatever, who hears this is Fujo bait, and our general reaction is, so what was the name again? Of course, this is not all of us. I see little turds all the time saying, is this Fujo bait? Is this yaoi bait? Is this gay bait? Is this queer bait? Is this shonen? Is this shonen? Is this shonen? Is this shonen? Although who it's coming from varies, especially whether they're into BL at all, or just a homophobe overreacting to an anime with an all-male cast, but we'll talk more about that in October. However, in my limited experience and observation, I've never seen a Hime Danshi or a fan of Yuri type Yuri bait and it'd be a good thing, which I find fascinating. Outside of the sporadic comments I've seen, even just a brief Google search between the terms Fujo bait and Yuri bait show that there's some stronger hate for Yuri bait in comparison to Fujo bait. And I feel like that frames us Fujo bait fans as desperate, but I like to think that we're grateful. And maybe that's why I've found myself personally a lot more invested and interested in series that are classified often as Yuri bait. I'm frankly more inclined to want to try Kakegurui than I'm in love with the villainess. Shirui Suna no Aquatope is probably my least favorite in this category that I've seen, but I've liked it more than most Yuri that I've seen. Hadokana Receive was going places that Haikyuu wishes that it could in canon. Birdie Wing, the golf girls doing golf things, gender bandana fish, and of course one of my all-time faves, a Yuri bait staple, keeping Hime Danshi and particularly Shuichi Kinney so very mad to this day.
Like a sucker, straight to my heart. Put 'em up and kiss me right now.
I love keeping Hibike Euphonium, its potent energy single-handedly regrew all of my hair. Now, I will say, out of all the Kyoto animation anime that I personally have seen, it is my least favorite, but out of all the anime I've seen, it's probably in my, like, top 35. And I've seen a lot of anime, okay? I have a lot of favorites. I have like, what, 600, I think, something entries on my anime list? Like, that's top 100. That's pretty high. That's top 50. It's pretty high. Hibike Euphonium has been at the center of Yuri baiting and queer baiting accusations since Reina grabbed Kumiko by her poofs and told her she'd rock her world, or whatever she said. I don't understand how these people can be so mad. Asuka? Like, Mayu Kuroe caused me visceral psychic reactions in season 3, but nothing is visceral as the lingering, somber, shadow of Asuka. I was traumatized in the best way. Listen, no f***ing canon lesbian Yuri has ever made me feel the emotions that Hibike Euphonium has made me feel. A lot of y'all don't understand the appeal of edging, and it shows. And what's crazy to me is that sound euphonium is vilified for the exact same reasons that SK8 is canonized. Do you see what I'm saying? Why are the straight men and their compatriots so miserable? Maybe y'all wouldn't need CGDCT if y'all chose to be happy. Yes, that's right. I just made a bootstraps argument. And for the record, I love Shuichi. Absolutely delectable. And in season 3, he has like 20 background boyfriends to choose from. Don't feel bad for him. I know I'm only really like tangentially covering topics in this video, kind of all over the place. But since we've come this far, since I apparently still have your attention, let's play another game. A game of attrition. I'm gonna count down from 3, and I want you guys to tell me how long you last after I reveal this next category. Does everybody have their stopwatch apps ready? Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Damn, the waist, the hips, the faces.
I literally do not go here, but I had to f around, find out, and get some triggered comments. From my observation back when I had social media and continuing on until now, from what I've seen tangentially from other people, a lot of people really like making their entire internet personalities entirely revolving around the fact of how much they hate lollies. Like, suspiciously so. Everything we do on social media and in our media consumption algorithms is registered by said algorithm and adjusted to make sure that we see more of that kind of content, even if you claim to hate it. This is not an industry secret. This is openly how we know these platforms work. I don't even know where you would have to be seeing lollies in precarious situations, because let me tell you, I frequent places on the internet featuring gay and straight whether it's featuring real adults or hubs of I do not encounter lolly in the wild, like, ever. I have never seen lolly If I wanted to see lolly I would literally have to seek it out, and I'm not doing that. What spaces are some of you in that you encounter lolly at all? Like, some people really and truly just sound like closet lolicons. With the archaic witch hunt behaviors we see on social media to this day around literally everything, and from what we know of the literal Salem witch trials, I'm more inclined than ever to believe that the loudest, most aggressive people trying their hardest to prove they're, let's say, not a witch are, you guessed it, a witch. I mean, literally just look at recent events involving the fandom around Invader Zim, aka Hasman Hotel for Millennials, where these types cannibalized one of their own over ship art, and it turned out one of the people involved in the cannibalization, so to speak, just got arrested for possessing illicit materials of, you guessed it, real minors. Are you concerned about kids? Because there are effective ways to care about kids. And then they're saying Susan is a witch because she gave you a drink, and after drinking that drink, you believe that you caught herpes. When the reality is that you caught herpes from sleeping around with Susan's husband, you want to make sure all the attention is on her. I'm just saying. But you know what? I've come to learn that some lollies are lovable. Like my current favorite lolly of the summer season, Atri. She's adorable and hilarious. Literally the first lolly that I have even tolerated since Fuko from Clan Ed, who was also adorable. With her little starfish, Clan Ed was okay, but Fuko was the highlight of all of it. Probably why I didn't love After Story. Do I want to Atri? Absolutely not. The character I want to is Ryuji.
Show off that body you got.
And you know, Atri has been kind of eye-opening as a character in regards to my perception of lollies. Because aside from the fact that she's literally a robot and literally not real, she's made me really hone in on my beliefs that lollies are subhuman. I feel like lollies aesthetically, narratively, just in general, are a lot closer to something like Mickey Mouse. Like, like, think about it. Small, cute, full of energy, kind of funky looking, squeaky voice. Oh, Oni-chan! Oh boy, there there we go. That's more Mickey Mouse. Oni-chan. The last thing I'll say in relation to lollies is stream Chisai Senpai, aka Legal Lolly Love. I mean, I call it that, but literally it's just like a short woman with boobs. But if I say she's a lolly, then maybe some discourse will bring her some views. All publicity, baby. I've said it before, but it's an office romance anime that may be but it's yaoi coded to hell. It might even be yaoi dame. Highly recommend. It's hilarious. Why am I promoting all the anime this year?
You say that I'm a crazy bitch, I'm sick, I'm permanently numb.
Can you tell I'm a Fletcher fan? In conclusion or something, Citrus, not a big deal, at least not to me. Yuri is I'll watch more as I go, but it's never a priority. CGDCT, that confusing acronym. Also, the cute anime character gender inequity gap. Hime Dachi who hate Yuri bait are ungrateful. And lollies, oh boy. So that was my little prance through the world of Yuri and anime girls. Do you like Yuri? Do you like CGDCT? Are you one of those citrus fearmongerers in TikTok comment sections? And should my alias in this wig be Sappha Chris, Jen de Envy, Pamela Manderson, Rusty the Riveting, Illegally Blonde, or Manish Pixie Dream Girl? And speaking of Manish, I've just begun a fun new interactive series on my Patreon called Shipping Wars, where you guys get to nominate ships in a tournament style bracket and we each vote on the best one. The BL category should be up tomorrow, so pledge today if you would like to see that video and like to participate in future videos. Also, at least the video portion should be available for channel members. Next video will be about the most ignored holiday of the year, Bisexual Visibility Day, where I will finally, after years of promising, cover Scum's Wish. It's gonna be juicy, it's gonna be something. I haven't started it yet. Bye! Oh, whoop.